Hey Shelby,
Hey Jared,
can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Perfect.
And hello to our friends at DD Oregon. See you guys decoding dyslexia. Um, an amazing group of people over there.
They are amazing.
Yeah, home care orphanages. I see you. Yeah, please send me a direct message and let's connect. And I'll send you one back and we'll figure something out. Shelby, I know you've been on this before, but it was more of a last minute deal, and it was you interviewing me, and I'm really actually excited to start where hear your story, and if you can give the audience just an inside look to your work in the dyslexia field and what you've done in your career thus far.
So, kind of what started with me is I have a daughter who has dyslexia. She was in about fourth grade when she was diagnosed. I knew something was wrong in first grade, and I just fell into IDA and Orbita. I had to call OHSU, and I got this number to go to a group that Del Holloway used to run. It was called the Reversals. It was a parent support group. And then I got sucked into the board. So I actually kind of learned about dyslexia as I became a new board member. Um, and I was very fortunate to have like experts guiding me through like IEP meetings. Judy Wright just pretty much did everything for me. I just owe so much to her. And so I kind of got sucked into that. And
I need to stop you. I need to stop you because you said something, and we have parents on the line, and I think, and I want to get into where you got sucked into. But before that, what did you think was going on with your daughter? Like, why did you think something was wrong?
I had, I just had this brilliant daughter who was so, I remember I was putting together my son's high chair and I was trying to read the directions and have it put together. And she was almost 3. And I turned around and she had the whole high chair put together. So I took it apart because I thought for sure she must have, and she did it exactly right. So, I mean, I had this brilliant, like, I just knew she was brilliant. And then she loved to listen to read and she loved books. And then kindergarten came and all of a sudden she was getting tummy aches and not wanting to go to school. And um, we laughed. Her kindergarten class had 3 Madelines. So we decided that we would, her nickname would be Matty because she was struggling writing her D's backwards. And we thought it was cute, and, not knowing that was a sign that. um, and so I just saw her go from this bright, happy girl, this huge vocabulary, to a lot of anxiety. And so we went right away in first grade to have some testing done. And the lady had mentioned dyslexia, but she said it's way too soon to know. And so now I know that's not true in kindergarten and first grade. But I couldn't really get any support until about fourth grade. And my daughter was in a place that she thought maybe not ending her life might be better than going to school. I remember her saying that to me. I think it was fourth grade. And I don't know, she didn't mean literally, but that was my wake up call. Like, something's got to change.
She just knew something was, it's not that she wanted to do that, but she just knew something was so,
Like, school was so bad. And she
yeah,
was together for school and then would come home and we all of a sudden having these behavioral issues that it just got really tough. And so
totally.
I was just sucked in.
Yeah, so okay, so back to you being sucked in.
And right away, just lucky to have people like helping me and being able to listen. So just, I was very fortunate.
Okay,
Um,
but your journey is very interesting here because it's not just your daughter now because you're sucked into this board and your heart and compassion and empathy for other students. You became the president of the board at some point here.
and I think I've had like every role. I just think that service piece, like if you get so much out of an organization, you just want to give back. I ended up becoming a tutor because we just don't have enough. And I kept seeing the same thing over and over with our kids. I know that reading and spelling is really important and it's a big struggle, but nobody was paying attention to their spirits were dying. And I always say that the death of the spirit, I would just watch it, and I still watch it. Like it just gets sucked out of them, and it just broke my heart. That's the piece that I just can't take that piece. So
Uh,
I just keep getting sucked back in thinking, okay, I'm done. My daughter's done through college. She's an engineer. She's, done great. But it's those kids that they're amazing, and you see that they're amazing. And you just need to point it out to them.
how do
Schools,
you do that? How do you point that out to them? I mean, how
I
do you?
just I just keep reminding them. I think sometimes they don't listen. I think that fourth and fifth, sixth grade year is really hard. I think the problem is everybody tells them to be positive and, they might have a superpower and all of this, but they're not feeling it right then. So you just have to make little comments all the time. Like, you're smart. That's brilliant. They know when you're just saying stuff. So you have to, they just amaze me every day. Like, I can't believe all the things I've learned, from bees dying. You name it. I've learned it. World War II, I've never known so much. These kids are amazing. And you just have to keep kind of feeding that to them and surrounding them with kids that are like them. So
Yeah.
that
So
they see that they are also amazing and that they're normal. Like, they all feel alone and they're normal. Like, this is fine. You can't read and spell right now, and it's going to be okay. So,
you you've built something here through the Oregon branch with regard to this. Like, it's not just that you're hanging out with the students, like you've built something really, really special with this student panel. Can you talk about that and how that evolved?
yeah, we started doing simulations, showing people what it felt like to be dyslexic. And I had 4 students. I had my daughter, and 3 other students that kind of wanted to tell their story. So we just brought them to a simulation, and they talked for about, I think it was just 15 or 20 minutes. And something changed. People listened, educators listened, administrators listened, and parents listened. And I kind of realized maybe that's the piece that we were missing. Sometimes in the IDA, I think we focus so much on, we forget the person with dyslexia. So, so I think I just love what's happening with the coding and IDA now, that the people with dyslexia are having a say. So it was just beautiful to watch the kids kind of grow. And what I saw is I didn't really have to say anything. I always say that I learned everything about being dyslexic from the back seat, because I would drive them around, and we talk about how I just bribe them with Burgerville or whatever food.
Yeah, yeah, let's pause here because so I was in recruiting for football. You which is one thing to get people to come and want to play a sport at your school.
Right, right.
You get people to come and want to share their life story, which is really painful and has some really dramatic
Yeah.
heartstring messages attached to it, to teachers and educators who they've been hurt by in the classroom on some level, but now they want to share their story in a way to connect with them and change the culture around dyslexia. What are you feeding them to get them to want to do this?
Anything they want.
I mean, if I'm a college recruiter right now, or an AD, like I am hiring you to come and run our program because of the way you get kids every year to want to do this and be part of it.
I think, the kids really want to tell their story. And I think I let them tell their story. I don't change their story or try to make their story better, or not let them talk about the hurt. You and I both know we meet adults, and you mentioned third and fourth grade, and they get tears in their eyes, and they're going to tell you this story. Our kids have to talk about that. They have to share that hurt. And when they share it with somebody that's experienced it, it's powerful. And I see them kind of move on. And then something changes in them as they hang out together. They start to tease and joke, and we use a lot of fun, and we kind of make fun of ourselves a lot. Um, but then that advocacy piece kind of grows. And we have kids that really have a hard time advocating for themselves, but other kids in the group kind of help them. And to watch that change, I think it's just surrounding yourself, that empathy. We talk about empathy a lot. If you don't have dyslexia or a learning disability, it can be a little hard. And it's just like our kids, your mom always loves you. Your parents always love you. So when your
Right.
mom tells you you're brilliant and you're great, yeah, it's your mom.
Right.
But peers, and then when you're talking to people and the kids see that, they see that people are really listening, teachers are really engaged. Sometimes they've been hurt by teachers, and I just love going to these meetings because they see all of these teachers that care so much.
Right.
And we try to remind the kids that nobody goes into teaching to hurt children.
Totally. 1,000%. 1,000%. And for the educators on the line, we all know that what we're trying to do is constantly give the positive messaging around what's going on and why it's occurring, and build awareness around dyslexia.
And we need to talk our kids through that. They need to see, like, sometimes they just don't know what they don't know. And even parents, we let our kids talk about what bugs them about their parents. It's good as a parent to hear that, but just that you have this community around you that really wants you to succeed, and getting kids to see that this community wants you to succeed. And if you just ask a teacher sometimes, that's all it takes. And our kids have a hard time with that because they have a hard time. They want to be, just regular kids. They don't want to need extra help. So what I love is watching the kids talk to the teachers after each of our meetings. And they're like, that teacher really listened to me. And I'm like, they'll listen to you. That they love kids. That's why they're teaching. That's thing, spending their own money, doing all these amazing things. I said,
Sure.
yeah, so I think just changing that is important, but still letting them talk about the hurtful things and discover what they're so good at. That's the part we have to focus on, what their skills, like what's going to get them through.
So your special snacks are bringing these students together, and and you're giving them a voice to be able to learn to advocate for themselves. But you're doing something else, and I want to talk about this. And again, if anyone on the line has questions for us, please drop us a note. If you want, you can also email the branch. We're happy to answer questions that way as well. But I saw something at the last IDA conference that was in Portland, and I wanted to share this with you because I wanted to get your take on it. A student came into, I think, the student panel meeting and was completely first time around, clearly dyslexic. Mom had brought her in, didn't know anyone. Immediately, one of your students goes up to her, takes her by the hand, gives her a wristband, brings her into the group. Like, not even a thought, not a hesitation, just knew what was going on, read the situation perfectly. And what are you doing? How are you teaching this leadership?
I honestly think it's the kids teaching each other. It's every kid that's come into the group kind of has that scared, what am I going to find? And, it takes, I'll laugh because I'll invite kids to speak and I'll say, you don't have to say anything. And then I'm shocked when they're sitting up there telling their whole life story after about 5 minutes. It's that comfort of being with other kids, and they know that those kids need that. And we talk a lot about sharing and how important it is. Just, like we talk about, we went out at the IDA conference and realized nobody knew how to read the menu. So they all ordered cheese pizza. And we just laugh about that, but that was such an important, like, they were validated, like, see, it's not just me, you're all normal, you all have, a life, and who cares if we can't read the menu.
Right. I bailed on every one of those dinners and would work out during that time because I just didn't want to go through the process.
Yeah. I think that empathy, these kids are they're so empathetic, and I'll ask them to like chat with somebody on their free time. They're constantly rearranging their schedules. I I have a couple students on the panel that will just call and say, I need my people, and we'll just set up something quick so that they can just have that conversation that they might not feel comfortable with their friends at school sharing. So,
Nicolin on the line says, "What a beautiful community." So she knows she's with the Videla team, and so they've done a lot of work for IDA Oregon and IDA National, and so she knows what's up with what you're building and how it's spiraling. But these kids they really do rearrange their schedule. They're out in the cold, sometimes throwing balls in the air in order to bring awareness around dyslexia. With this latest campaign of the Succeed with Dyslexia campaign that went on, and Jody's on the line right now, so shout out to her.
Well, they love Jody. So Jody and Jack from Scanning Pins really kind of embraced them and listened to them and just made them feel special. I think that's what's so important about this group. When people listen to your stories and you realize you kind of validates that you are normal and you are special and you're worth hearing.
So what message do you have for parents out there with their students right now, maybe new to the situation of dyslexia, or maybe not even trying to figuring it out? Like what can they do right now? Like what would be helpful tips for them?
I think really that community, they really need to connect their kids with a community, be it online, just watching some of, chats, watching other students. But I think the thing that I kind of messed up on as a parent, I worried so much about the reading and spelling and the academics. I didn't pay attention to the anxiety and those kind of issues. And if I had to do it all over again, I know the reading and spelling will come with some tutoring. I know there's some amazing technology, but I would have spent more time on, I guess, the mental health, keeping my child's spirit, so not losing. And I think I'll never forget, I was flying on a plane and I was filling out the little immigration thing, and I burst into tears because I thought, my child's never going to be able to fill out this paper. And we laugh about that all the time. She probably could fill it out for me 20 times faster now but when you're in that panic and school is so hard, and you as a mom are panicking, your child's panicking, you kind of give off this vibe to your teachers, like, oh, here's that mom.
Yeah.
And you try not to, but and they're usually pretty good with you, like, oh, I know you're worried, but just relax. And you cry in the shower at night, so nobody hears. You just have to pay more attention to that. Your child looks at you and they can tell what you think.
Right away too. It happens.
Sometimes you just have to be the mom, is what I'd like to tell people. You can't be everything. Sometimes you just need to be their mom and take a step back and see the older kids, and they've made it. Surround your kids, show them the stories. Like, it's going to be hard in school, there's no question.
For sure.
We would take that away, we can't, but that you're going to make it, and it's going to be okay.
Well, I'm just going to correct one thing, and it's because you're so humble that I'm going to correct this thing. That being a mom is a job that I will never fully understand myself, and I just know all the work that goes into it. So there's no such thing as being just a mom, but all the work that goes into that. So
sometimes we forget to be just the mom.
That makes sense.
I think that's more like, we think that we have to solve all the problems, and I think sometimes we forget that we just need to be the mom sometimes, and
just
to go on the back for a little while.
Fair enough. I can understand that. How about for educators? What can educators do to work with these types of students?
I think really kind of listening to some of their struggles. The piece that always gets us is the accommodations. So a lot of our kids end up with the 504 and the IEP, and they're just not getting their accommodations. Some kids can't talk to you about how to advocate. They're not ready. It has to be learned. So I think if a teacher can start helping draw that out in a student and being very mindful of that student's where they're at in their advocacy piece, not calling them out in class. If they're comfortable with that, fine. A lot of our students that are, the seniors in our group are pretty comfortable calling things out, but some of our kids just are too shy and they don't want to call themselves out in front of their peers. So I think if a teacher could be aware that they just have to provide the accommodations and not wait for the kids to ask for them, because a lot of kids are not ready to ask for them, or sometimes even don't really know they need to. They'll turn in a paper and they think it's like perfect, and then a teacher might look at it and say, oh, we're missing some periods and capitals and some words. So just delicately helping that student. I'll see a lot of times that middle school age where teachers are like, well, you're in middle school now. Doesn't necessarily work. Sometimes when you have dyslexia and ADHD, you need that extra support.
Yeah, it doesn't, there's no like model that like they get to a certain level and then they have it figured out or they're supposed to have it figured out. It's a constant work.
And another big thing I see is a lot of parents doing their kids' work. Teacher's not going to know your child has a problem if you do their work all the time. And it's not fair to call a teacher out at the end of the year and say that they didn't get any help if you haven't shared. And if you've done all their work and it looks great, and that's a really hard mom part too, is stepping back and letting your kid turn in their work, because the educators really need to see what your child is doing. And that's hard as a mom. We want our kids like, oh, I don't want you to turn that in, let me fix it. It's really, you need to step back and let the teacher see what's going on.
Yeah, give the teacher a chance to do their job and get them caught up to speed. I think something that gets misunderstood about our students, and I want your take on this, is the level of effort they're actually putting into things. And it might not show the way that people would envision effort on a paper naturally occurring. Like if they spend 6 hours, it might not look like they spent 6 hours. How do we convey these messages? And is this what you're finding?
Oh, absolutely. One of my most heartbreaking moments as a tutor is a little boy brought me his paper, and it was a spelling test. And the teacher wrote, "Did you even try?" And we had been studying 3 of those words for 6 weeks. Like, not only did he not try, he came to extra tutoring. His mom tried, his grandma tried, everybody tried. And that was kind of my first wake-up call. Like, wow, she has no idea how much effort this took, this student. And actually, she was horrified when she found out. But when you saw the effort on the paper, and you maybe didn't know anything was going on, it looked like maybe he didn't study at all. But instead, he spent 6 weeks where the rest of the kids maybe spent a couple nights that week.
An hour before.
That effort part was like, wow. Like, and how we ask why our kids kind of give up sometimes. And that's exactly why our kids give up.
Absolutely.
Put all this effort in, and then what they get back, there's A, effort work in, and then they'll get something back that's a C. And some of our kids are up to like 3 o'clock in the morning, even on the panel. The ones that I need straight A's, like 3 o'clock in the morning. And then they get there and then they're like, oh, wow, did you hear about spell check? Or, they'll say comments like that. And it's like, oh, they have no idea. So I think parents and kids, that's the first thing. Before your kid starts school, and I always start in August with my students, make sure your teachers know ahead of time. And make sure that they know it's going to take a lot of effort. And your students work really hard. And sometimes just knowing that, I think, just makes a huge difference for educators. Then those little comments kind of disappear. Like they'll say, oh, I know you really worked hard on this. Can I help you fix a couple things?
Yeah, I think you hit on a really important point, and I can only reflect on my experience personally. it's almost crazy what we're asking the students to do by continuing to be in an environment that's not meant for them. And
Right.
I really hope that educators and parents are empathetic to that situation, because it's easy. It would be the easier decision is to walk out. And we know the benefits of staying in. But what we're asking them to do is really, really hard. It is asking them to run multiple marathons for people that aren't runners.
Right.
So, and keeping them engaged in school is the ticket out to a, to the continual work and progression for their academics. But we need to have a lot of empathy, and we need to continue to support them while they're in an environment that is not meant for them. And that to me is going back to what you were saying. It's the heart of the student. We need
It
to.
have to protect it. I always ask, like when we're giving things, has anybody not learned how to swim, even though they've had swim lessons? And I'm like, okay, now imagine your day, every day, is all about swim class, and that's all you're gonna do. And hire a tutor for you, and then you're gonna on the weekends practice, and by the end, you still can't swim. Just the anxiety, we all have something that we can't do, but if we had to do it every single day with just a little bit of gain, I just can't imagine. It's that spirit. We have to protect the spirit. We have to put other things in there. Maybe the spelling test, and I know people hate hearing this, maybe the spelling, it's not maybe worth our effort. Like maybe that time should be doing something that they're really good at. Just we have to have a way to let them know how brilliant they are, because you and I both, we laugh all the time about how amazing these kids are.
I would hire if I was in a position to hire students, or, have a company, these are the students that you want working for your company. And they're the ones that are thinking way outside the box. They're coming up with solutions. They're brilliant. We know that dyslexia doesn't impact their IQ.
Not
More than capable.
And they're all different. I think that's one thing I want to point out too. I have never tutored a student with dyslexia that is the same as a student with dyslexia. So everybody has, spelling. We all have our challenges, but different spellings for everybody. We have a student on the panel that cannot listen to an audiobook. So everybody is telling her in the accommodations, you have to listen to an audiobook. And she tries to explain, like, audiobooks don't work for me. I have a processing disorder and I just can't do the audiobook. So, I mean, we have to listen to, I did that as a parent, forcing these accommodations that really didn't work for my child because they were on this list that everybody said has to be, like, my kid can't take Spanish, my kid's going to take sign language instead. And we don't realize that sign language can be really hard for somebody with dyslexia if they have slow processing, because it's not a fit for everybody. So I think we have to get away from that everybody, we
Meet
all
the
different.
meet the student, meet the individual student where they're at. Find out what works best for that student and provide those accommodations to get them to the next spot.
Yeah. And, I just think for the educators, for as many like little stories I hear that aren't good, I hear way more stories about there's a teacher at school and, they said this, and I can just, the child feels like a rock star. And maybe they're not even really good at, I remember one of my students that I tutored, I was chuckling. The teacher just had her so convinced. And you know what happened? At the end of the year, she was really good at it, because somebody believed in her and just gave her that. It's so amazing to see the educators just give that little extra edge. The words that we say really do matter.
Totally. I want to talk about something that you and I have talked about on other conversations, but I think it's important for this audience as well, about the impact of recess, or holding kids in from recess, or even their sport or their extracurricular activity, whether that be art or yoga or anything outside of the typical day, where a grade point average might determine whether they get to participate in that activity or not. Can you explain the importance of the extracurricular activity and recess to this audience?
So I think that recess and sports is more important than spelling. Can't believe that, or reading, because
I won't tell anyone.
we know that those things that they're great at are going to get them to the next level. So many kids, they have a party every Friday, and if they've completed all their work and done anything, they get to go to this party. Some of our kids have never made it to the party. So why would we have them? Why would they try? And these kids still every week are trying to get to these parties. Um, and so that kind of, you can't do that. You have to find a way that they can achieve and reward. And sports, robotics, recess. Do not hold anybody in from recess. I think that's just bad for the teachers, because they're the rest of the day. Like, these kids need to run. I'll never forget, I was at a school, and every once in a while I would see the door open and a kid would be out running. And they came back to the class, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I just can't sit anymore. So I run 2 laps and I come in." And I thought, brilliant teacher, brilliant. He came back and he was ready, ready to listen. That's a brilliant teacher. Sending the kids to the office to deliver a fake note because you see that their anxiety is too high.
Wow.
My daughter delivered a lot of fake notes to the office, just to get that break, that mental break.
Totally. I think there's a couple of things. I sit on the board of an organization called Playworks, which teaches structured recess. And what they found through research is that when students go and they have a productive recess, their engagement goes up in the classroom after. And I think that is important, that it's not always about just sitting there and trying to get through it. Sometimes you need to get up and move and clear your head and then come back to the space. And so I do think the movement piece is huge, especially for students with learning challenges and dyslexia. The other thing you're an educator, and I've been playing with this concept ever since we've talked, but if there was a way to reevaluate students, because I believe in education and I believe in being in the classroom for all students. I know that's important. If we could, though, flip the system for a second, and if a student attends the class and shows active participation and some sort of demonstration of knowledge of the material, either be it an oral exam or doing a picture or showing that they have absorbed the material, maybe not the way of a traditional test.
Right.
Maybe that doesn't change their grade point average, but if that was the indicator of whether a student could participate in robotics or art or music or sport at the high school and even at the college level,
yeah,
wouldn't that make more sense?
It totally would make more sense. And something I see too on the playground and at recess, our kids, that's where their skills are. They're the kids worried about the other kids not playing with anybody. I'll watch it all the time. I'll volunteer to be the recess monitor just so I can watch this. They seek out the kids that are by themselves. They run the sports games, that empathy, the people skills. They get everybody to play and do this and that. And I'm like, so not only is it the sports and the movement, they really get to use their skills. And they're really good at it. And it's beautiful. And I don't think we're developing that enough. Because that's what's going to take our kids. That's when you hear about all these brilliant people and we see them at the IDA conference, and when we go to decoding dyslexia stuff, we hear of all these people. Those are the skills that have made them to the top. Not sitting in a classroom doing worksheet after worksheet after worksheet. So.
Totally agree. And I think I go back to, I think you could see it on the playground. The level of empathy is high, given probably their challenges that they've had in the classroom. And then you can see the example in what happened at the IDA conference. The recognition of other people's well-being is just It's
Yeah.
so up there. And I think we could really change the system in a way that gets people more involved in the extracurricular. I think we'll see the benefits in the classroom and more education, more learning, more productive learning
Yeah.
versus what's a grade. And I understand the importance of grades in terms of like there's factors where grades play into it. I'm not saying,
No, it's important, but it can't be the only
but
thing.
but if that's not the, I don't think that needs to be the defining thing of whether a person participates in an extracurricular. Because
Right.
I think the extracurricular is the thing that can get them motivated to take on the challenges of the classroom, and the two go hand in hand.
I was lucky that I had a middle school principal. So my child was pulled out for special, help. And she said to me, kind of on the sly, she said, this child needs one of the electives. And I'm like, well, but they're not allowed to have an elective because they need extra help. And she's like, no, this child, it's your right. So she was telling me that I had the right to ask because my child deserved a free and appropriate education just like everybody else. And that includes electives. I think people don't remember that. You can push that. And I'll never forget, they signed her up for choir. My daughter hates to sing. And so I couldn't believe that they would sign her up for choir. The choir teacher was so amazing that it made our whole year. They had all the middle school boys singing, which is usually not a thing.
Yeah.
That's, I think, too, when I realized the power of being included and the same thing that your peers are, and the power of an amazing teacher. I mean, she had middle school kids singing and loving it. I'll never forget her. So,
The special ones do stay with you. That is amazing. So, Shelby, we're wrapping up here. Your work is tremendous. Your advocacy work for these students, you building a student panel, you mentoring these students on a completely different level than anyone could have ever asked for you. You running the IDA Oregon branch as the president in the past. I'm excited for what, I don't know what you want to do next, but I'm just excited for you because it's so valuable, the resource that you have as a parent, as an educator. So I thank you for all your service because I know that you're impacting students on a completely different level.
well, these kids they're just special. Like, they're just amazing, and it just sucks you back in.
So the rule on this deal is you get the last word. Your message to the world with regard to education or dyslexia, you get the last word. So
I guess my last word is, when our students came up with that, you're not alone. I think that's really important. It's something as simple as that. Surround your kids, surround your community, just knowing that you're not alone, that there's people that are here to help you, and that understand how you feel. And really listen to the kids and let the kids tell their story. Let's not tell it for them. Really tell their story, and let the kids own it, and kind of take a step back and let the kids kind of lead
I
for that.
love that.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time on a Monday and all your work. It's just
And thank you.
valuable.
Kids love you. Good team.
Well, it's amazing to be part of them, and their stories are just so powerful, and the work that they do is just tremendous. So
Thanks.
we'll be seeing you. Thank you, Shelby. And
All right.
that's a wrap with the International Dyslexia Association. Go follow Dyslexia. You're not alone. If you're not following them, that's our student slogan. They came up with that, and that's the Instagram handle of the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch. And if you have questions, please, you can message the chat there, or you can email the branch, and we'll be happy to help.
Thanks.
Take care.